Hey everyone, today we're going to play in Blender and see how we can recreate a scene like this to make our own memes with our AILU MetaPanda or any other 3D model. For this demonstration, I'm using the old version of Blender 3.6. It's just been updated to version 4.1, but I'll show you why I'm not using it yet. We push X to delete this cube. And then if we import our 3D model, so here we have our 3D AILU Panda in version 4.1, but I have a really hard time selecting the skeleton, which is these tiny two dots. This is what you need to move the bones for posing, but with those tiny dots I have a hard time seeing what they are. In the viewport display under the armature data properties, you're supposed to be able to change what they look like to sticks and bring them in front, but it doesn't seem to do anything and it's a real pain. The other problem is that most of my paid add-ons don't seem to work. N for the menu, shortcut UVR, and all I get is errors. So 4.1 isn't good for me at the moment. So we open up version 3.64, but first I want to make it look like how I like it. So we'll delete this cube in the middle with X. We need to add two add-ons. Go to Edit and then Preferences. In the add-on section, we're going to need to import images as planes. So just type in the search image. Import export images as planes, enable that. It will automatically install. And the other one I want to install is my shortcuts plugin, shortcut VUR. Make sure that's enabled. Close that. Push N for the 3D menu on the side, shortcut VUR, and start. And now when I push a button, you'll see what I'm pushing. I also like to change the way my viewport looks, so back into Edit and Preferences, in Themes, and then 3D Viewport. Scroll down in this section, the Theme Space, Gradient Colors. I want to choose a vignette, and choose the color of the gradient you want in the background. I like a dark blue. And in the gradient low, I like to choose black. Close that. Looking better. In the settings menu, you can take off the grid lines, which is next to those two little circles. Click the floor, that'll take away the grid lines. If you want to remove the axes, you can click the XY. We'll keep them in for now to help us orientate better. I also like to change some of my menu settings. So if we go to this Outlier tab, in the bottom corner, bottom left corner, we just click that and drag it down. That'll delete that Properties tab that we just had. We're going to make a new Properties. If we click the top right corner in the 3D viewport and drag it to the left, that will open up another tab. We're going to change that to Properties. We're also going to need some animation settings. So with this one here, we have the timeline by default. We're going to drop that down to make a new tab, and we want to choose Dope Sheet. And we want to change Dope Sheet to Action Editor. This is going to make it easier for us to assign and save rig poses and animations and transfer them to other models if we want to. We can also add a third one for non-linear animation. We won't use this tab at the moment, but it will be useful for future animation work. We can drag those down to the bottom to hide them for now. So we'll import our AILU model. Push Z and choose Material Preview. Here's my AILU MetaPanda. Hey, looking good. I like to put everything in their own folders. Push M to move, New Collection. Just save that to Collection 2, and it's been moved to its own folder. We open that hierarchy. These little caltrops are empty groups, which are most likely used for the master file to export individual components with each separate model. This is the skeleton, which forms the armature and the meshes. Here in the skeleton, click the skeleton or the parent group, go to the data properties or the armature settings. In viewport display, you can change it to stick and choose in front. The default octahedral gives us these big triangles. I like sticks. You can also have the name showing, so if you're not sure about what something does, it'll be named to each body part that it's assigned to. This becomes useful if you're reassigning animations to a different model and have to match them up. To make the model move, press Ctrl Tab with the armature selected. That will put us into pose mode. You can select individual bones. If you push G to grab, that will move and stretch the model. If you push R to rotate, that will allow you to move the joints in the body, which will still stretch the mesh but not deform it too aggressively. To exit pose mode, you can either push Ctrl Tab or go to the menu in the top left and change it back to object mode. So for making poses, it can help to have a reference image. We've got the Keanu Reeves from Cyberpunk. And save that. We can import that as a plane. Push Shift A, image. With that add-on installed, we now have images as planes. Import that image. It'll be sideways, so rotate, Z-axis, 90 degrees. Grab Z to move it up, GX to move it sideways. It's actually back to front, so we'll go R to rotate, Z 180 to mirror. We want to move it back a little bit, so that's on the Y-axis. Might move it to the other side. So we want to have our AILU MetaPanda posed like our reference image and then put it on a background without that showing. So we'll open our image in Microsoft Paint 3D and we'll use the Magic Select to select the model. Remove the parts that are not the model. Fine. Autofill background. And we can just delete them out. Gives us a reasonable blank background. Control Shift S to save as. Save it as blank. And we'll import that too. Shift A to add. Image as planes. Blank. Rotate on the Z-axis 270. Move it up on the Z-axis. Move it across on the X-axis. Move it back on the Y-axis. We want to find some sunglasses. I'm going to go to Turbo Squid, which has a large range of free and paid models. We're going to search sunglasses. And we want the free ones. Free, please. Try these ones. These look free and they have a blend file and an FBX file. So we'll download those. In the download, it'll have all the different files that you've saved. FBX and blend. I usually like the blend files. The FBX is only 250 kilobytes, so it's likely that it doesn't have any textures attached. The blend file is 1.4 megabytes, so we'll download that. Open up that blend file. Check those sunglasses in the material preview. Looks good. They're probably going to be huge. Select the sunglasses. In that outliner, make sure that what you've selected has everything you need, the mesh, the two materials. We don't need this nubs path, that controls the camera animation. If you push 0, that will show you what the camera is looking at. So the artist has an animation set up with the camera, but we don't need to import that. Click the sunglasses, Control C to copy. One object is copied. We can just paste that right into the blend file. And they're over there. We're going to put those sunglasses in their own folder. And I might make a duplicate of them, just in case I mess it up. Shift D to duplicate, and just right click to place them where they started. Hide the first set with a little eyeball icon. And we're going to tick this camera icon as well, so that when we do a render, it's not included in the render. Take the copied sunglasses, move them across on the x-axis, R to rotate on the z-axis to make them flat. You might do that by 90 degrees to keep it square. So we want to fit these sunglasses onto our AILU MetaPanda. So position them roughly where you think they're going to go, S to scale, and if you just scale as it's selected, it'll scale each of the transforms evenly. If you want to scale on one axis, you can push on the X, right click to cancel, on the Z, or on the Y. We want to scale it evenly. See if it's a close enough fit. Rotate them down a little bit. You can push 3 to go into the side orthographic view. R to rotate. Z-axis. No. Not the Y. X-axis. There we go. Tilt them down a little bit. So when we come to posing the model, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare if we're moving the head and the glasses stay the same. And if we have to move the glasses on an uneven axis. So we're going to create another bone that will parent to the original armature, which will make it much easier to pose the glasses. So we'll go Shift A to add an armature, which will be down here at the 3D cursor. We're going to grab that and move it up to the head. And we're going to bring it in front. Go to the orthographic view number 3 on the side. We're going to move it to position to the center of the glasses. R to rotate, S to scale. We might even hide the head of the panda and the hair. So we want to position this glasses armature roughly to where we think the center of rotation is going to be, which will probably be just behind the arm of the glasses. Make that a little longer, rotate that up. So because we used numbers and even transforms, that should be right in the middle of the sunglasses. This is one reason why it's important to use the XYZ axes when you're moving objects. If you're not sure if it's right in the center, we can select the sunglasses, choose 2 vertices, which might be right in the center, probably these 2. Shift S for the cursor, move the cursor to selection, tab to exit edit mode. On the glasses, set the origin to the 3D cursor. Now select that bone, go into edit mode, select that little ball, Shift S, cursor to selected, exit edit mode, select the glasses. So the origin of the glasses is now hopefully the center of the glasses. Shift S, move the selection to 3D cursor. That should put the center of the glasses as we chose it right in the middle of that armature. Bring the head back, still looks fine. So now we click the glasses, shift click the armature. We're going to parent the glasses to this new bone. The object you have selected last becomes the master object. So if you're wanting to parent multiple objects to a new bone, you would select all of those objects first, select the bone last. Glasses, bone, Control P to parent. So we're just going to parent it to the bone. So now once we have our glasses bone, we enter pose mode with Control Tab. When we rotate the bone, it should move the glasses. Control Tab to exit. We're going to rename that glasses, and we're going to move it to the glasses collection. So now that the glasses and the glasses bone are in the same folder, they've been put into the hierarchy. So now we're going to parent this glasses bone to the head bone of the MetaPanda armature. So we select the glasses bone, select the AILU armature, press Ctrl Tab to go into pose mode, that will allow you to select which bone you want to parent it to. So we've got the glasses, Shift click, the head bone, Control P, parent the bone to the bone. So to test that, click on the AILU armature, Control Tab for pose mode. We have the head bone selected. Now if we rotate the head bone, the glasses should follow. Control Tab. Because it's two separate armatures, you'll have to keep entering and exiting pose mode. Now if we go Control Tab on the glasses bone, we can rotate the glasses relative to the head, and they should stay relatively where we put them. If you select all on your armature, pose, clear transforms all, it will reset it to the default, which is the 0 point. And then the same with the glasses, clear transform, back to the beginning. So we'll change our glasses to a stick. Very nice. So now we'll try to recreate this pose. The first thing we want to do is save our 0T pose, because if we start editing the pose here, we won't know what to go back to from the 0 point. So this is the timeline, which has our animation strip and individual frames. This allows us to automatically keyframes, but we sometimes don't want to automatically keyframes when we're moving these images. Otherwise, when we move across the timeline, they will start moving around based on where we've put them. So if we select our body armature, push I, location, rotation, and scale, that adds a keyframe for the location, the rotation, and the scale in our 0 point. And the same with the glasses. So I like to have blocks of 10 for different poses. You can choose one if you want to. So if we go to frame 10 and now select automatic keying, and then we're just going to recreate this pose, Control Tab. We can either use our XYZ transforms, or you can just keep moving the camera with the middle mouse wheel, because it will rotate just by moving the mouse at a right angle to wherever you're facing. It takes quite a bit of getting used to, so just keep playing and practicing and having fun until you get a hang of where you need to position the camera, or what transform you need to select, what axis you need to select to get the position and the movement that you want. Now, because we've rotated the hand, if we start going to the fingers, even if we rotate on an axis, it will end up being uneven, because we're rotating on the global scale, where the 0 point is the center of the world. So if we just undo that pose on that individual bone, if we change our pivot point to local, it'll change our axis of rotation based on the local origin of the bone it's parented to, which is the hand in this case. And for this particular rig, we do have to go through one by one with each of the fingers. If we just select all of the finger bones, it'll still only rotate that master bone that we've selected first. And we're using our reference image as a guide to get our pose as close as possible to what we want. Close enough there. Just move this hand out of the way. So his body's also on a bit of a lean. So if we imagine his hips are slightly facing us, so we'll rotate that a little bit. Just go up the chain. And everything that we've moved should move relative, because this is getting close to the origin of the entire skeleton. Starting with the hips, going up through the spine. He's slightly leaning forward and to the side. I'm going to lean his head down a little bit. And a bit of rotation. Means we'll have to move the hand away again. So he's got a bit of a quizzical expression. If we click on the head mesh in this triangle of data object properties, we have a lot of shape keys. We can drag that bigger. We don't need the vertex groups. We'll give him a slightly eyebrows frown. We'll add our location, rotation, scale keyframes. On the brows down, we want to change this to edit mode. When we drag the value slider, that will give us a bit of that expression. Mouth pucker is always a good one. You want a funnel? Not really. Yeah, boy. Mouth frown. Just like 10%. Slightly open that jaw, tiny bit. Beautiful. Probably needs to be leaning forward a little more. Looking down at the player from up here. Looks good. So if we push 0 to select our camera, that's where our camera is currently looking. If we position to where we want it to be looking, press Ctrl-Alt-0, and that will move the camera to where our viewport is looking. From here, with the camera selected, we can push G to grab. Exit pose mode first. So we want to try to position the camera as close as possible to what we see in the reference image, or to whatever you want. If you push grab and then Z, that will allow you to zoom the camera. We'll zoom in about there, and about there. So now we'll position our reference image, which is blank, in the background. We rotate on the Y axis, and we'll have to rotate it a bit on the X axis. Scale it up. And we can probably hide our first one. Make sure you hide the camera so that if we do a render, it's not going to show up in the render. So this box is everything that's going to be in the camera view when we do our image render. Looks good. We can hide the rig for now. So we have our camera. We have one light in the scene. If we go to render preview with the Z, it'll be very slow unless we configure some settings first. In the render properties, which is the camera icon, Eevee is faster. Cycles gives better results but is a lot slower unless you've got some very good configurations with Eevee. I tend to find Eevee looks a bit cartoony and Cycles looks a bit more dramatic. So we'll choose Cycles, and we want it to use our GPU, not our CPU. So we choose GPU compute. To check that our GPU is actually in use as a rendering device, go to the Edit Preferences, go to System, Cycles Render Devices. So we're using the Cycles Render Engine, but apparently we're not actually using our GPU shader, which we can see it's blacked out here. So you want to use the highest setting possible that your graphics card allows. So I'll choose Optics. use our GPU and our CPU, so it's going to use both. So now our GPU is actually highlighted and selectable. And our viewport with the noise threshold, the higher this number is, the faster it will load, up to 1. So we'll change that to 0.5. We see how that looks like so far. Very dramatic. And our render, we'll keep that to 0.1. Samples, I'll change that to 512 in our viewport. Every time you change position, it's going to re-render the viewport preview using our settings. For our background, which is grey, because now we're in the render preview, we don't have our blue viewport background. Choose the world settings and the surface background color. Click the middle. You can just make that white, very slight blue. Back to our render settings. Samples, I might just choose 2048. Keep our noise threshold the same. Light paths, the more light paths you have, the longer it will take to render. So I'll just drop this down to 4. Transmission down to 8. The more light sources you have, the more objects you have to bounce off, and the more transparent or translucent materials like glass, the more you'll notice a difference with higher light settings. Fast GI approximation. In the film settings, if you choose transparent, it will give you a transparent background, which is useful if you just want to have a transparent cutout of your model to put onto other images. Under performance, if you use tiling, if your image uses a large number of samples, it will block those samples into tiles and render each tile individually, which can take a little longer, but it does save a lot of video memory and prevents a lot of crashes. Persistent data is useful if you're doing multiple renders of a project, where it will save the sampling data for future renders within that file, but it will also use a lot of your video memory, and if you're not using a good card, it can cause a lot of crashes because your card's memory is taken up with persistent data. Under color management, we're going to change our look to high contrast. In our output settings, this is the resolution of our image. Make sure your file type is set correctly. For an image, a PNG. To render the image, just press F12, or under rendering, render image, F12. That will open up a new window which will render the image. If you want to stop the render because you've seen something, you've made a mistake, just push escape. So I nearly just lost everything. Make sure to save as you go, which we should have done at the start. Idiot! We might want to add some lighting into the scene. We go to render preview, either by clicking the render preview icon in the top right, or by pressing Z and going to render preview. Shift A to add a lighting area. Again, that will be down the bottom. I'm going to move that up. While we're moving the lighting, I'll just put it into solid mode for performance. We're going to make this a side light. Coming this way. Then we're going to have a backlight. Add another light. Should name this. Side, back. And a top light. We can hide or delete that first light that we came with. Top. Let's see how that looks. In the lighting settings, let's just see what happens if we change that to yellow and pump it up. Quite like that. Make it a slightly lighter yellow. Backlight, keep that to white. That will increase the shadows in the front. And with our top light, we made that a very strong blue. Yeah, too much there. Bring it right back. It's quite good. So we've got our lights visible and rendered. Our camera, our blank image, side lights, our panda, not the original glasses, just the model glasses. So if your rendering is taking too long, or you just want to take a shortcut, you can hide the lighting just from the viewport. You can do a cheap render where you just increase the samples. in the viewport and take down the noise threshold. Wait for a bit for the image to clear, and then just take a screenshot. Just save that. No one will know the difference. We'll compare that to our final rendered image. Just drag that to the side. Save our settings. Put our lights back on, F12 to render. And there we go, all finished. It's pretty good. Yeah, quite noticeably different. Much better. But for a quick copy paste to save about 2 or 3 minutes, that's pretty good. But that one looks really nice. So thanks everyone, hope you enjoyed and found that valuable, and we'll see you for the next one.